how do you shape complexity? For example, if you're to put up your hand and say, this may be a better future for our consideration, like the SDGs, saying, let's contemplate these 17 goals and 170 odd targets, which, when summarized, is really about human flourishing, resource resilience, economic prosperity. How then do you get a complex, dynamic, alive system to contemplate something and potentially move in that direction without being a hierarchy or a manager?
Yes. Well, I think you started asking the question. So I think the first principle there is to have a lens of a living system rather than a machine. That's the first thing. And that's going to change completely the way that you intervene in city design. Because if you believe those systems will behave with mechanistic predictability, it will give you one set of decisions. If you believe they will behave dynamically, it will give you a different set of decisions. That's the first thing. The second thing is I think wisdom, perhaps, in answering your question, to look very briefly at what drives this complexity. So what we would say is, if I could give you a quick list, I would say the first is number. When the number goes up, the complexity goes up. So when you look at cities and where they're going, you look at what's interesting to me, the foresight dimension of cities. In Africa, for example, we have about 1.25 billion people on the continent. By around 2050, that's the number we'll have in cities alone. And the exact same number will be living outside the city. So the number goes up, the complexity goes up. The second issue is the interconnectedness. So not only does the number go up, but the connections between them go up. And you can see mathematically that means exponential connectedness. The third thing is that to calm everything down, because it feels a bit out of order, we publish rules, city rules, calm everything down. Well, of course, what you're doing by publishing a rule is you're adding to the number in the system, which means counterintuitively, you're making it more complex. I'm not saying you shouldn't have rules. I just mean that you should understand what you're doing when you are publishing that rule. So when you publish a transport rule, for example, it will have an implication on employment. The fourth dimension, and I'm almost done, is one of this fascinating discovery in psychology in the last 70 years. It turns out, Dominic, humans can choose. That means that they're behaving now like living systems, not mechanistic ones. So they want options, and they will game it. They will game it because they want to be entertained. They want to have freedom. They want to have choices, and their choice is not necessarily your policy. And then the final two is, of course, number 5 is that we want it fast. Yeah, speed drives complexity. And then the last one is to use exponential organization language, is dematerialization, which means it's difficult to touch this stuff, right? In other words, the issues are around not machines and grease, as in the mechano-cognitive processing from the first industrial revolution, but are intangibles, elements of trust, of confidence, of inspiration, motivation, a sense of belonging. These are the drivers of cities of the future. And these 6 elements, I would contend, contribute to the increasing complexity in city life.